It's one of those stories that I only share with my closest friends, for fear of being thought crazy. That night was just like any other. I was coming home from work. At the edge of the road, I saw a woman. She stood still, staring at me with empty eyes. What caught my attention was not only her unexpected presence but also her appearance. Her face and clothes were partially scorched, as if she had escaped from a fire. Her face looked very familiar, but blinded by fear and darkness, I didn't have time to think. Not knowing what to do, I sped up and continued on my way, trying to convince myself it had been my imagination. The next day, the scene repeated itself, but with a chilling difference. This time, the figure by the roadside was a man, desperate, trying to stop my car with his hands raised. I immediately recognized his face. He was the husband of the woman I had seen the night before. I ignored his gesture, speeding up even more. I shook with fear, fearing I was losing my mind. But in the solitude of my home, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. They were a local family who had once lived there until their house was devoured by flames a few years ago. A clear cause for the fire was never found, but suspicion always fell on a local man known for his troubled history. However, no sufficient evidence was found to incriminate him, and the case grew cold over time. What were they doing on that road? What did they want to tell me? I had no proof against that man, and there was nothing I could do. The most incredible thing happened on the third night. The apparition was even more disturbing. The young son, who had also perished in the fire, was there. With a silent gesture, he pointed towards the charred remains of what was once their home. This time I couldn't ignore it. Something in his gaze compelled me to stop and confront what was happening. Trembling with fear, I headed towards the ruins of the house where this family had lived. The full moon illuminated the debris, giving them an even more ghostly appearance. I searched among the remains, guided by a force I did not understand, until my hands touched something unusual. It was a charred but still recognizable personalized lighter, known to belong to the man who had been the main suspect of the fire. With the evidence in my hand, I had no choice but to go to the police. The investigation was reopened and, with the new evidence, the suspect finally broke down and confessed to his crime. It had been an act of revenge that went out of control, a moment of anger that ended the lives of an entire family. I reflect on what happened and realize that, in some way, the souls of that family found a way to point towards the justice that had been denied to them in life. Although the wounds of the past cannot be completely closed, the truth has brought a certain degree of peace, not only to the souls of the deceased, but also to the entire town. Perhaps now we can all begin to heal and look forward, always remembering that justice, however delayed, manifests in the most unexpected ways.